Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I would like to thank you for your invitation. I'm very happy to be here with you. Today I'm gonna present basic facts of the Sudan civil war with you. But firstly, I would like to introduce myself, then we can continue with my presentation. As you know, my name is Sayın Acun. I am a senior researcher at SETA Foundation. Actually, during the 15 years, I'm worker as a think tanker. Actually, I started my career in Cairo. At that time, I found SETA Cairo branch, and we start to work on Egypt domestic foreign policies, and also try to cover Sudan case and most part of the Africa. However, after the military coup, I had to come back to Ankara and start to work on Syria and Iraq, generally the conflict zones. Also, I try to cover some terrorist organizations and counter-terrorism, especially Al-Qaeda, Daesh, and I try to focus on, at that time, Hayatul Tahrir Sham and generally Syrian case. Also, I am covering the PKK and PKK substructure from Syria to Iraq to Iran, etc. That's me. Okay, today actually I will share some basic facts about civil war in Sudan with you, from foreign elements intervention to gold smuggling. Try to show real photograph of the civil war according to me. During the presentation I will show you some maps and infographics. On the back side you can see them. Then if you have question, I don't know we have time or not. How much time I have, by the way? Okay. I don't want to get much of time of you. Then maybe you can get your comments, and if you have questions, I'll try to answer you. Please. Okay. You can see the map behind me. As you see, Sudan is in a very hard place on the map. It's a very big country, but with very big problems. Like Ibn Khaldun said, the geography is almost like its fate. Sudan is a country where the government has right now become very weak. Society is broken into pieces, and the economy has mostly collapsed, and still there is an ongoing civil war. And we are not talking about civil war, my friends. Right now, it's also the ground for a big proxy wars. Its resources and wealth are being taken and used by others. According to UN, 34 million people need help from outside. It's very, very much number. And 14 million people have been forced to leave their homes inside of Sudan. 9 of them run to other places inside Sudan, and almost 4 million people went to different countries across the border. On the map you can see from Egypt to South Sudan to Chad, many neighbors of Sudan has refugees. And this refugee crisis also affects these countries very badly. The current conflict is damaging infrastructure, including healthcare facilities, as the conflict is cutting people off from the water, food, affecting farmers and livestock. Unfortunately, is now Sudan is now affected by famine at least 5 different regions. And so, how did Sudan get this situation? That's the main question, and during my presentation, I will focus to answer this question. Let me see the map with you. You see Sudan in the Africa has a very strategic position, especially it's very close to Red Sea. And as you know, Red Sea is one of the main water areas, especially the energy flows coming and out from the Red Sea. And because of the war, America and Israel start to attack Iran. Iran and its proxy force, include the Houthis in the Yemen, try to respond the American forces and try to right now blockade the Bab-el-Mandeb area. And Iran also tried to control Hormuz, and America responded and right now establishing a blockade against Iran. So the Red Sea is very strategically important, and Sudan is directly on the side of the Red Sea. And at the north side, you can see Egypt. At the south, left side, you can see Libya, Chad, and South Sudan. Unfortunately, Sudan separated 2011. At that time, there was a civil war between two sides, and the support of the Western countries and Israel. South Sudan got its independence from the Sudan. Can we go to map 2? And right now you can see some factual numbers about Sudan. You see we are talking about 53 million people according to 2026 estimation. And we are talking about the third largest country in the Africa. Before the South Sudan separated, it was biggest in the Africa, but right now it's more than 1,861 kilometers square. And we are talking about, if we are talking about GDP, gross domestic product, we are talking about $60 billion according to 2025 and nominal numbers. And per capita gross domestic product, it's about 1,100. It's very low, my friends. If we compare the other countries, for example, in Turkey, we are talking about at least $18,000, but South Sudan right now only 1,100. And already I mentioned when we are talking about humanitarian numbers, according to UN, 34 million people need help from outside. The population right now 53 million, but 34 million of them need help from outside, and 40 million people have forced to leave their homes, and 4.4 million people went to different countries across the border, especially Egypt, South Sudan, and Chad. And these flows also affects other countries around Sudan. For example, if we compare Syrian refugees effects in Turkey and Egypt, South Sudan, and Chad under this kind of effects right now. And control map, I have another map for you in order to understand what's going on right now in the Sudan. This is the current military situation. Back me, you can see. As you see, country practically divided two parts. As I try to illustrate to you as red and the yellow side. Red side represent right now the Sudanese army, and the yellow side RSF, the Rapid Support Force. It means rebel forces against the government. SAF, the Sudanese armed force, control most of the north, east, and center of the country right now. RSF hold most Darfur area, especially the fall of the Al-Fashir in October 2025 as a major turning point, and with heavily civilian deaths, and at that time claiming genocide there. And you can see West Kordofan and some southern areas also control of the RSF. However, since 2025, Sudan has witnessed important military and political developments. SAF have regained control over the Khartoum. That's very important, including key government institutions, presidential palace, international airport, then leading to improved security in the capital and the parts of central Sudan. As a result, hundreds of thousands internally displaced people and refugees have begun returning to their homes. That's very important, especially in the Khartoum and the Jazira state. According to estimates, about 4,000 to 26,000 Sudanese had voluntarily returned from Egypt out of estimated 1.5 million who have fled there since the war started. UN also started relocating some of its operations back to Khartoum, reflecting gradual improvement in security conditions. However, RSF continued to control a large area of Darfur and the part of the Kordofan, where fighting remains still active. Although economic activity has slowly resumed, some regions and basic services are gradually being restored. Significantly, challenges remain, including damaged infrastructure, limited access to healthcare and education, and need for large scale of reconstruction. When we look at the main fighting areas in the map, especially around the North Kordofan and the city of Ubaid is the main place. Şey var mı ışık falan gösterebileceğim? I don't know. Do you know the map exactly when I'm talking about some place and name it? Can you understand where is it? For example, El Ubaid right now. It's very important. Let me point you with mouse. Yes, this is El Ubaid, part of the Kordofan. Right now, the main fighting, my friends, is going there. The RSF is putting strong pressure, like as such, in these areas. In July 2026, the SAF took back some northern towns and the main road of between Khartoum and El Ubaid. That's very important, which helped their supply lines. However, fighting continued there, and also in Blue Nile and in Darfur, there is fighting going on. Many front lines we see there is active fighting going on between two sides. Both sides are attacking each other with an airstrike, and armed drones are being used a lot in this fight. Air defense systems are also important, and Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan support the central government side, and UAE, Chad, Ethiopia and Israel support the RSF forces. We can see also Turkish armed drones have especially changed the war in the favor of Sudanese government. That's very important. Many platforms, like especially the Acun'u drones, were exported from the Turkey to the Sudanese government, and these drones have stopped the movement ability of the RSF forces. Logistic lines coming from areas like Libya, Chad are often hit, and airports also being targeted by these drones. Can we open the third one? Okay, this one. And on this map, you can see how drones are affected in the civil war of the Sudan. In this map, you can see smuggling lines from Libya to the Darfur area. And Khalifa Haftar's forces generally supported to RSF. And under this, of course, we can see United Arab Emirates. However, these supply lines are very important on the civil war, and right now, because of Turkey's help and Turkey's supplying Acun'u TB2 and other drones, these drones easily attack the supply lines. And on the left side, NASA firms indicators, you can see how many, on the cars and other vehicles are attacked, and this supply line effectively cutting by the drones. These are very important on the ongoing civil war. And of course, one of the another factor in the Sudan civil war is foreign actors, and right now we can see a kind of proxy war. Right after RSF rebellion started, the UAE became its main supporter. In early period, Russian Wagner paramilitary forces also supported RSF, and of course in here the main power guiding UAE was Israel. UAE and Israel act together on many issues in the Middle East, and they have the same position on Sudan. Israel also played a role in Sudan's first breakup process and supported South Sudan. Now is supporting the RSF. They want Sudan's territorial integrity to be broken up, and the Islamic nature of the Sudanese government to be weakened, and to use this chaos to place themselves in various African countries in the region. Because they do not have a strategic depth, they want to weak, fragmented states around them where minorities are strong, and they want to create allies from the minority groups. The UAE is also smuggling gold from the gold mines in the region together with the RSF. I have another map for you about smuggling. In order to understand Sudan civil war, you should understand its economic dimension, and of course right now we should understand the gold smuggling issue. The UAE is shown as the main foreign supporter of the RSF, and Sudan's gold resource, especially in the Darfur side, you can see on the left of the map, form the economic backbone of this relationship. UAE's support for the RSF comes in the form of weapons, drones, armored vehicles, ammunition, fuel, medical aid, and mercenaries, especially Colombian private military companies, PMCs, are very effective in the civil war of the Sudan. It's said that this support played a critical role in the RSF's advance in Darfur, including the fall of Al-Fashir and the Kordofan area in 2025 and 26. Sudan is the Africa's third largest gold producer. Underline this. It's very important. Gold is the main fuel of the war economy. RSF controls right now the mines in the Darfur, such as Jebel Amer, Songu, and Sungu area, and the Al Junaid company, owned by the Hemedtis family, and plays a central role in the production of the export. As you know, the Hemedti, leader of the rebellion RSF force, and his own company right now control many gold mines in the country. And when we look at the flow and the volume, gold controlled by the RSF is smuggled to Dubai through Chad, Libya, and South Sudan. On the map you can see these smuggling lines, how gold produced inside of the Sudan, and then via which countries and directions flowing, and how it reached to Dubai right now. My friends, it's estimated that more than 2,500 tons of smuggled gold, it means worth over $115 billion, entered the UAE from Africa in 10 years. When we compare the Sudan GDP for 1 year, it's about 60 billion. But when we are smuggling number of the gold, we are talking about $115 billion. The gold is refined in Dubai and then sold on the international market. The money is then used by RSF to buy weapons, drones, and mercenaries. So these are the main presentation of mine about Sudan, but also I want to here focus to future of Sudan. Maybe this part is more beneficial for your program. And according to me, I wrote some possible scenarios for Sudan's future. Of course, it's not easy to predict how the Sudan civil war is gonna finish, but maybe we can discuss 4 different scenarios. First scenario, with global and regional pressure, two sides sit at the table and try a new power sharing deal. It's the easiest one, but right now doesn't seem possible. A second scenario, the fighting continues at low level. The two sides weaken each other, but cannot destroy each other completely. So gold smuggling continues, the war economy grows, and humanitarian crisis even deeper. And third scenario, de facto division becomes official. The Sudanese army controls the north and the east, while the RSF controls the west and south. RSF declares unilateral independence from Sudan, like South Sudan case. South Sudan in the areas, the controls and builds a limited diplomatic support network through Ethiopia and Kenya, and of course UAE and Israel. This scenario looks unlikely under again the current conditions. And fourth scenario, which could be most likely according to my analysis. This scenario briefly assume that because of regional developments and the conflicts, the UAE comes under pressure. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan and Egypt increase their support for the central government, and the RSF is gradually defeated militarily. We should analyze fourth scenario under new Mecca alliance, Mecca pact between Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. The defense agreement between Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan would be an important step toward establishing a new security architecture in the Middle East. Over time, other countries may also join this pact, and it's possible that United States will relatively withdraw from the region, and that the resultant power vacuum will be filled by Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan, forming a balancing security architecture against Iran and Israel, while Turkey stands out with strong political will, diplomatic competence, and military deterrence and defense industry. The Saudis stand out with their economic power and energy supply, and the Pakistanis, as you know, with their nuclear power and human resources. These are totally complementary force multiplayers. Therefore, this development would also have military consequence on Sudan civil war. That's my last scenario and could be the most likely for me. Actually, my presentation is finished right now. Okay, if you have questions or comments, maybe you can discuss the issues according to your ideas. You know, right now, as I mentioned in my presentation, not only civil war going on, also in Sudan, unfortunately, there is a proxy war. You know, we saw this case in the Syria. A lot of actors clash each other and try to represent their own interests there. Right now, in the situation in Sudan, we see another proxy war. And RSF as a rebel movement directly supported by UAE. We can see a lot of indicators about it. But why UAE support RSF? This is another question. According to me, behind the UAE, we see Israel. Israel is totally guided the UAE and get a similar position with UAE and support UAE to support RSF. Why this combination support Sudan civil war? First of all, Israel needs strategic deepness around itself. You know, according to their military doctrine, Israel always has threat. It's a kind of psychological mentality. Once around of Israel, always weak countries. That's why always Israel support the minorities against majorities and try to separate the countries from Syria, Lebanon, Palestine issue. Even they always have agenda against Egypt. And of course, Sudan issue. 2011, during the civil war at that time, we directly saw Israel supported the south against north side and Sudan separated. But still, Israel was see North Sudan against threat of their interests and supported the RSF at that time. And another issue about economy. Gold smuggling is one of the main factors right now. As mentioned in my presentation, we are talking about at least $120 billion gold smuggling from South Sudan. South Sudan has a huge natural resource, including gold mines. And this affects some outsiders to manipulate the situation and smuggling these wealth. And we can also another heroin smuggling, human organ smuggling around it. And UAE and Israel always on the same page, not only on the Sudan, from Libya to other Somalia. Right now, we see these alliances are unfortunately. Right now, Israel and the United Emirates doesn't want any diplomatic resolution. When we look at the process, especially Saudi Arabia tried to make a role. For example, Jeddah proposed, and some United Nations attempts about this diplomatic process. However, these countries always try to prevent this process. And another issue about hard power, you know. According to me, as a think tanker, I always believe importance of the hard power. If you on the ground, if you don't have enough power to impose your position, then any diplomatic efforts can't be a success. For example, in Syria case, we saw it, you know, during the almost 14 years, we saw civil war, but the power change on the ground, then easily the issue solved. And in Sudan also we need this kind of power changing, you know. Right now you can see the country divided two parts, but if the Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan intervene the situation and support more to central government against the rebellions, then at that time we can see maybe a diplomatic solution can apply. But right now it's not easy, I think. Yani, of course, in order to secure the borders right now, Sudan civil war should finish. Under the clash going on, it's not easy to secure borders, and some of the countries around Sudan unfortunately support the civil war right now. For example, Ethiopia, Chad right now directly support the RSF, and Egypt right now with Turkey and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia support the government forces. So this smuggling continue. Militias entered from the border directly. In order to secure these borders, Sudan government should use drones much more. If they attack the supply lines and cut these lines, then we can see more secure borders at there. And most of the borders of the Sudan generally uninhabited areas, so it's not easy to control these lines. As I mentioned, the technology, the Sudanese government right now needs more technological advanced weaponry systems and drones. Then they can control their borders, and according to these new ground positions, maybe defeated RSF more easily. Things changed. As you say, Burhan was used Hemeti for a long time, but 2023 they totally separated because Hemeti didn't obey the Burhan and want a kind of between them. We saw at that time a kind of clash of interest, especially to controlling the gold mines. You know, there is a huge wealth there, and they couldn't share this. But after the first rebellion, the other countries intervened the situation, like United Arab Emirates and Israel, and we saw a lot of massacres in the country. You know. Maybe 100,000 people died in the war. So right now, it's not easy right now, again, peace settlement between them, because UAE and Israel now control the nature of the fighting right now. So I don't believe they come together on the table and start to talk and agree about the future of the Sudan right now. Actually, right now, during my presentation, I try to mention any mediator attempt doesn't affect because of the ongoing war inside of the Sudan. If one side control the general territories and get hegemonic power against other, then this kind of mediation process can, helpful for the future of the Sudan. But if the both sides still powerful and get support from the outside, they will continue to fighting. So African Union, United Nations, or some countries like Saudi Arabia or the Western countries, attempts doesn't work for me. Why I am saying this? Because my experience of Syria case, when we compare the other conflict zones like Syria or the other places, even the PKK, Turkey and the PKK process, we see the same. If Turkey couldn't defeat PKK mostly, we can't see this settlement right now. In Sudan also, we need the Sudanese government defeated RSF, then this kind of mediation attempt can solve the problem, I believe. Yeah, to understand Israel policy on Sudan is very important, and Israel use any tools against Sudan. When I was in Egypt, I'm searching at that time the Sudan case, and during 2011 and before the civil war occurred, and finally the country separated. And during that time, I saw Israel intervention to situation. I tried to follow the Israeli media, Israeli think tanks. Israelis try to understand Israel's decision-making process. That's why Israel interested in Sudan very much. And I saw that strategic deepness is very important for Israel and Israel paradigms. Israel needs to get some alliance around it. If some country is a threat for Israel, then Israel start to enter the deep inside of this country and try to make a kind of clash between the minorities to majorities or between actors using the sectarian separation from Arab to tribal issue or Turkish Kurdish issue, anything they can use it. So in Sudan case, we saw in the beginning Israel's attempts. Then General Burhan controlled the government. In the beginning, I'm not sure about Israel manipulate the RSF or no. But after the civil war start, very fastly Israel intervened in the situation and tried to manipulate it according to their interest. And sometimes we see Israel directly or indirectly using and intervene in the situations. For example, in Sudan case, mostly Israel use UAE to impose its interest on the ground, and also Ethiopia. Right now, Israel is very powerful on the Ethiopia's foreign policy, try to manipulate Ethiopia to the countries around it, and Ethiopia is one of the most powerful supporter of the RSF on the ground. So Israel used UAE and Ethiopia to intervene the situation. So that's why we need the balance of power on the ground. Okay, right now, until now, Turkey, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan supported the Sudan government. However, with the Mecca alliance, if we are talking about a pact, a defense pact, these countries maybe support much more aggressively to the Sudani governments. And if this happen easily on the ground, the military positions and power structures change, and central government can defeat this rebellion and eliminate the other interventions. You know, because if you control the borders, if you control the supply lines, then you can easily control the rebellion side, and step by step you can control the Darfur and the other south and north and the west Kordofan areas. That's my future analysis and the position of the Israel on the ground. I think we finished. You have a question? So, okay, please.
So you have talked about this generally, but I would like to go more in depth of it. What diplomatic tools can Turkey use to support a peaceful resolution in Sudan, to support ceasefire in Sudan? What diplomatic tools can Turkey use?
It's a very hard question to answer. You know, we don't have much tools right now because, as I said, I don't believe diplomatic solution can be possible right now, because we need to change on the power structure on the ground. Then we can start a diplomatic efforts. But as you know, Erdogan has a huge reputation all over the Africa and the Middle East. He can maybe use his will and bring the sides together. But firstly, we need to prevent support of the UAE and Israel. Also, if Turkey establish a kind of mechanism with Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Egypt, then these four countries provide a ground for a diplomatic solutions for the future of Sudan. And African Union has played a role, and if Turkey establish a mechanism with African Union, then can provide a kind of diplomatic solution for Sudan's future. But I believe we still need the time for this kind of efforts. First of all, right now, as a think tanker, try to follow what's going on the ground. We need to change the military balance on the ground, then start this kind of diplomatic process. Humanitarian situation is very bad. There are some developments after government control of the Khartoum, but still there is a huge problems ground, and international community have to provide more help right now to Sudan, and as I mentioned, there is a good development on it, and Turkey and also NGOs in Turkey and from all over the Islamic countries, especially Qatar and the Saudi Arabia's NGOs try to reach the people on the Sudan. And however, it's not easy because the war going on and some places you cannot reach. For example, Al Ubaid right now, RSF try to encircle it and you cannot reach the Al Ubaid people. So international awareness is another issue. If the media, if there is enough media coverage, then maybe pressure on the UAE and Israel is increased, and their help and their support to RSF affected under this media coverage, and at least some with some negotiations, humanitarian organizations can reach the people on the ground like Al Ubaid and the Darfur. On the Darfur also the clash right now continue, and we have information about the ground. There is a huge massacre there, especially the RSF forces unfortunately killing the people who are against them, especially the different tribes. They attack these groups, and international media can also not reach these kind of places. So in order to reach more humanitarian aid, and we need to pressure on the side of the rebellion and its supporters, then maybe the facts on the ground can change. Exactly.
We thank Mr. Acun for their valuable insights.
Thank you.